Let me ask you guys a question. When did the last time you heard a major news? Let me ask you guys a question. When did you last hear a major news anchor from CNN, Fox, MSNBC? It doesn't matter. Look into the camera and say, Black youth unemployment just hit 29.8%, roughly 30%. Nearly 1 in 3 young Black people cannot find a job. Take your time. I want you guys to really think about this. I know that you're drawing a blank because they didn't say it. They told you that the national unemployment rate was 4.4% in December of last year. They called it manageable. They ran segments about a resilient economy. They had economists on with good hair and bad analysts telling you the job market was healthy. But here's what they mumbled, buried somewhere in the footnotes, thrown in the last paragraph or so, mentioned after the commercial break that nobody really watches, because that's when everybody gets up and get their snacks and other things of that nature. Because Black unemployment hit 8.2% in November of last year, the highest in years, and by December it was still 7. And by December it was still 7. And by December it was still 7. And by December it was still 7.5%, almost double the national rate. If those numbers apply to white Americans, there would be emergency congressional sessions. There would be a stimulus package. There would be presidential addresses, but it's Black people, so it gets a footnote. That ends today. I want you guys to now pull up a chair because we're going to read the receipts out loud here because this is utterly important because there's been a lot of reports that have come out. The Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies published the State of the Dream in 2026 report. And believe me, it's devastating and it is specific. Here are the numbers, not feelings, not my emotions, not my opinions, but just facts. Because Black unemployment timeline in last year of January was 6.2% when it came to unemployment. Then in November, it rose to 8.2. Then in November of last year, it rose to 8.2%, which was the highest. Then December, it dropped down back to 7.5%, still almost double the national rate. In January of this year, we're still at 7.2%. Black youth unemployment, the number that should be on every front page, September of last year was 18.6%. Then in November of last year, it was 29.8%, nearly 1 in 3. And then in December, it dropped to 18.3%. Recovered, or is it just a statistical fluctuation in a permanent crisis? Now, here's the human translation of these numbers when we really look at this. And I'm going to just blow this up for your viewing pleasure here. But 29.8% Black youth unemployment is not kids being picky. It's not gaps in workforce readiness. It is the economy looking at the entire generation of young Black people and saying, sit down, wait your turn. Don't build momentum. Don't accumulate work history. Don't earn the savings that will let you start a business or buy a home. Here's the numbers that hit me the hardest, because the Joint Center estimated that if Black workers had maintained the same employment rate in 2025 and 2024, approximately 260,000 more Black people would have been working, including 200,000 Black women. That's not a statistic. That is 260,000 families. That's 260,000 people who woke up every morning in 2025 with less than what they had the year before. That is a city the size of Orlando that just disappeared from the payroll. And the mainstream headlines, resilient economy, I don't want to hear that mess. Because because this didn't happen by accident. And if you're going to fix something, because this didn't happen by accident. And if you're going to fix something, you need to know what is broken. The Joint Center doesn't just give you the numbers. They connect the policy dots, okay? And let me walk you through each one of these. The federal jobs massacre, the federal government have historically been one of the most reliable pathways into middle. Let me walk you through each one of these because the federal government jobs have historically been one of the most reliable pathways into the middle class for Black workers. Stable wages, benefits, clear pay scales, protections, pension access, the kind of stability that the private sector has always made harder for us to access. But last year, approximately 271,000 federal jobs were eliminated. Black workers are disproportionately represented in the federal workforce. When you cut the federal ladder, you don't cut it equally. You cut the communities that rely on it the most. That's like pulling the batteries out of the smoke detector and acting shocked when the house catches fire. They stated that they were gutting DEI, which in my opinion is a distraction and in my opinion, that is a distraction from what was actually destroyed. Because two executive orders were created. Executive Order 14151 and Executive Order 14173, which effectively dismantled the DEI infrastructure inside of the federal government. The headlines called it Ending Woke Policies. The impact was eliminating the offices that handle hiring equity, discrimination complaints, and contracting compliance. And when you look at the numbers, because most people say, yeah, that's why a lot of Black people are unemployed, because all these DEI initiatives, all these DEI positions. But when you take some time and you do the research and you look into who really benefited from DEI, studies and data indicate that white women have historically been the primary beneficiaries of DEI. While designed to support underrepresented groups, white women have seen the largest gains in corporate management positions. And according to Reddit, now not just Reddit, because I don't believe that's a very reliable source, but Forbes, Pew Research Center, which are very reputable, okay? They have gained the most terms of representation in C-suite and management roles. They are often the first to benefit from gender-focused initiatives, such as parental leave, leadership development, and networking programs. And if you really dive back this, the gaps in benefits, while DEI aim to improve research, okay? While DEI aim to improve research, let me do this. While DEI aim to improve, research shows that it has not primarily benefited Black Americans and other minority groups as much as initially intended. Studies indicate it could take significantly longer for women of color, Black women, to achieve gender parity compared to their white counterparts. So I know someone's going to come out and like, yep, they got rid of DEI. That's why a lot of Black people are unemployed. No, they did targeted seconding. No, they did targeting of certain sectors where a conclave, a great concentration of Black people were actually being employed in. That was not DEI. Okay, you don't have to say I'm targeting Black prosperity. You just remove the guardrails and let the truck drift into the same ditch it always drifts into. Nobody's hiding this. The executive orders are published in the Federal Register. The DOJ issue implementation guidance. This is not a conspiracy theory. It's policy on paper. Okay, the Joint Center flag moved to dismantle the Minority Business Development Agency and defund, okay, the CDFI fund, the Community Development Financial Institutions Program. Here's why that matters in very plain English. Big banks don't lend to Black-owned businesses at the same rate they lend to white-owned businesses, even with the same credit score, even with the same assets, even with the same credibility. The data has confirmed this for decades. The CDFIs were built specifically as an alternative, a last real lender standing for local projects, small businesses, and underserved communities. When you threaten 10 to 15 billion in federal support for Black-owned firms, which the center estimates you're not cutting red tape, you're cutting oxygen, okay? And just for your reference, you're telling Black entrepreneurs the market was already stacked against you. Now we're removing the one tool the government built to partially level it. Permanent for the wealthy, temporary for the One Big Beautiful Bill Act of 2025 made tax cuts permanent for high-income households and corporations. Meanwhile, support for working families was left stagnant or reduced. This is the part people call not racial because the word race doesn't appear in the legislation. But here's the math. If the wealth is already concentrated away from Black households and it's with a 45% Black home ownership rate versus 74% of the white household, then policies that protect wealthy accumulation protect the gap. That doesn't close it. They institutionalized it. Permanent advantages for owners. They tighten budgets for workers, and they lecture about personal responsibility for everyone caught underneath. That's not small government. That's selective generosity. So when they say they're cutting the fat off the government, what they're basically saying is they're cutting a lot of minorities, especially Black people, out of government jobs. They're hiding it from us because that's what people love saying it. I'm going to push back on that. It's worse than hidden because the BLS pushes the numbers every single month. The Joint Center packaged the narrative with a policy context. The Congressional Budget Office scores the bills. It's all out there for us to know and read. And that's why you guys should come to Blacklogic, hit the subscribe button, and hit the thumbs up button as well. But the question is this. Why doesn't 8.2% Black unemployment become a 5-alarm national story? Because in America, a crisis only becomes national when it hits the demographics that control the microphone. And please don't hit me with the same old historical racial tropes and stereotypes that Black people don't have the same educational attainment and pedigree and professional portfolio, because we know that's a lie. Black Americans are one of the highest educated groups, especially Black women. So don't keep using these misnomers to deflect into red herrings that we're not qualified for these positions and jobs, because we are. Stop making it about race and stop making it about skills. What about all of this? What do they call it? Stop all of this merit-based hiring, because they're not hiring people based on merit. See, this is when it hits the audience that advertisers pay too much. When it hits the voter base that both parties are actually scared of losing, Black people are taken for granted by the Democrats and ignored by the Republicans. So our recession gets a footnote, and the national conversation moves on to what the president tweeted at 3 a.m. in the morning, and that's the game. And the first step to changing the game is refusing to pretend you don't see it. I'm not here just to diagnose all of these issues within our community, within the American economy. Here's what I'll put on the table. Real talk, not a motivational speech. We must rebuild the federal ladder. Stop treating federal employment as a political toy. The communities that relied on those 271,000 jobs didn't ask for a policy experiment. Restore staffing where it functions as a middle-class pipeline, or watch the data get worse each and every quarter. We need to actually fight for capital access. The CDFI fund is not DEI spending. It's basic financial infrastructure for communities that big banks structurally exclude. Defending it is not woke. It's arithmetic. See, consumer protection is not optional, because the Joint Center flags financial deregulation and the dismantling of the CFPB protections as disproportionately risky for Black communities. Whether it be predatory lending that doesn't go away just because the watchdogs does, whether it be predatory lending that really doesn't go away just because the watchdog does, it gets hungrier. Black credit unions, Black-owned business Black-owned business networks with internal capital flows, community investment pools. I'm not saying abandoning the political fight. I'm saying you can't win a one-front war when the other side has both parties. Yeah, they may seem on the surface as two parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, But in my opinion, they playing the same game. And we really need to know the difference between the two. Politician and a partner, we need to know the difference. A politician shows up every 2 to 4 years. A partner shows up with a contract and a delivery schedule. And until Black America demands the second kind, with the consequences for non-delivery, we will keep fighting. We will keep, until Black America demands the second kind, with consequences for non-delivery, we will keep getting the first.
From the friction is a flame that leaves a mark. Success ain't a finish line, it's just a state of mind. Leaving all the heavy baggage of the yesterday behind. I'm focused on the craft, keep the vision crystal clear. Eliminating doubt until I'm deaf to every sneer. Yeah, it's a marathon, a sprint, it's a rhythm in the heat. Writing chapters of the legend on the ledger of the street. Eternal fire.